In went from yesterday, I'm going to go deeper into explaining money as a battery. I realize that might be a very obscure concept without some information backing that up. So we're diving into it a little bit more. So money as a battery. A battery stores energy. So money is a representation of stored energy. That gets pretty abstract, but think about it. Like when I go through the definition of money, it's actually defined as a medium of exchange, and that medium of exchange is, I think, very different from the way we all think about money. The medium of exchange is not the words I was expecting when I looked that up, and I've already kind of started writing an essay where I've really deep dove into each one of those words. But really, the word that sticks out in all of it is medium. So we have become a very cash-orientated society or money-oriented society, and that used to not be the case. We used to, be able to do things for ourselves and then trade whenever we needed something, and then, well, money is a useful resource or a kind of a universal way to exchange and get stuff done. But we'll get into that part more because I'm going to do several videos of this. I really just want to talk about money as an exchange for energy. Okay, so we have this. Most people typically trade time for money, which is they put their energy into something and they get money in exchange for that energy that they put into something. And then we can take that money and then exchange that for something else that we want. Now, money is not the only way we have to do this. Maybe you do favors for someone, and in exchange, someone does something in return. But that's still thinking about everything from a monetary standpoint. And what I want to do is kind of challenge that. That is one form of exchange, trading favors, doing something for money, or doing something for exchange. But the more we learn about the way we interact with each other and the chemical processes of our brain, the neuroscience, which is the buzzword these days, well, I come to the conclusion, the deeper I look into it, that nobody does anything for free. And that's really what I was trying to get to. That term free has been locked up with this monetary term, and that's not really accurate because monetary is just one form of medium. See how we're stringing the words together? Hopefully they're starting to make a little more sense. So the example that really broke it over to me, I was going through thinking about selfish versus selfless people and the way we classify those in modern society, or at least the way I'm familiar with it. So usually we attribute, hey, he'd give you the shirt off his back, or he'd do something for anything, and then we place that at a higher priority than money. But often we also do it in contrast of money, which is an interesting thing to explore as well. Those without money find value in doing things that don't involve money, and then those with money find value in doing things involving money, which I think further enforces my point that it's a medium of exchange, and what we're exchanging is energy, right? So when someone does something for someone, we treat that as a selfless act because we see no money exchange, and this is how tied up we've gotten with that monetary term. See, they actually get something out of that. They get the feel-good feelings, or they strengthen the relationship, or they reinforce their like mental framing to their own morals. Like I would never let my family down. Maybe one of the core rules that they hold to, or core beliefs that they hold to. And the brain rewards that. Just like when you spend money or gain money, the brain rewards that as well. So that's kind of what we're Uh, I guess let me go ahead and get a little philosophical, because I did an experiment with the ChatGPTs, and I was playing around, and I've always been kind of a dreamer. Like, I grew up watching Star Trek and all that stuff, and I was like, what would uh, a cashless society look like? And the further and further I dug into it, the more I realized is there's a fundamental issue, because cash takes the place of something, and we've kind of really lost sight of that. Cash takes the place of energy exchange, and this is like fundamentally hard coded to us in our biology. I tracked the example I did was bees and pollination, and like the relationship between the two. I think gives a really good example. And yes, there's all different types of other analogies, but I think most people will be familiar with that. See, a flower offers up pollen and nectar to the bees because it does not have the energy to self-pollinate itself. There's obviously other ways, but it attracts the bees in, okay? So it's like, let me lend you, or let me borrow some of your energy to transfer this pollen to another place. In exchange for that, I'm going to give you this stuff. And the bees are happy to make this trade. They're like, they'll go collect the nectar, because in exchange for the energy that they output to move this pollen around for the flowers, they get the nectar that they take back to the hive and they make their honey with. So that's kind of the root of the problem, and why a lot of the arguments, I think, break down whenever we're talking about a cashless society. So we still have a need for medium of exchange, some way to regulate that, and we don't quite have that answer. That might be, I think historically, is more of a social system, as far as everybody contributed to the group and did their share. That's why that's actually a whole different conversation. Excuse me. But that's kind of the point I'm trying to get to and kind of flesh out here, though, is that really what we're exchanging is tokens of energy. And then how we evaluate those tokens of energy, well, we built really complex layers on top of that with our current system, which is a fiat-based money currency system. And I probably won't get into a lot of that, but there's been numerous types of currency systems whenever you go back to history. We are most familiar with a government-backed type currency system because that's what we've grown up with. But we all inherently know gold has intrinsic value, and that kind of surpasses a government-backed system. It's got some problems with it, but most people can kind of make that understanding. Now, what they might not know is why gold has the value it has. It's a this is where I think coming back to a battery really helps with the explanation, right? So we've all had experience with car batteries, and I'm not going to assume we all have experience with this, but if you leave a battery, depending on the type of battery, there's a ton of different types of batteries now. Some are better than others at different things. But when we're relating to the monetary system, what we're talking about is its ability to store over a long period. And that's where the relationship comes in with gold. So if I take a car lead acid battery, if I let it sit there and I never do anything to it, within 3 to 5 years, that battery will no longer have a charge in it. It will dissipate out. The chemicals in it will short circuit. It will go back to a neutral state. So it's a short-term battery with a lot of maintenance on it. Gold makes a really good store of energy because it's inert, or it's incredibly consistent, and it's incredibly inert. It does not corrode like a lot of our other metals do. And then its rarity makes it of value. There's a lot of effort involved in getting that gold out of the ground and putting it into a usable fashion that can be exchanged. It's consistently weighable, which means everybody can agree to the same system. And that's why we all like keep coming back to this idea of gold. It's kind of just a brief history, but anyway, that's basically me trying to explain money is energy, and I may come up with some better examples the more I think about this, and hopefully I can. Hopefully that makes sense and makes it into my final cuts about this stuff. Yeah, I think that's enough for today.